The NFL trade deadline was a spicy one, and it's time for a post-deadline mock draft. Arch Manning to Los Angeles Rams, sign me up.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parsons. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. The NFL trade deadline was spicy. It's over with. All the moves and shakes have been done, which means it's time to bring you guys a post-deadline mock draft. We're going to talk about our favorite picks, most interesting picks, and the most underrated picks in our mock draft over at Bleacher Report. But before we get into all of that, today's episode, Crossover Thursday, matter of fact, is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Keith, favorite picks, we did this mock over at Bleacher Report right around the time that the trade deadline and stuff was finishing up and everything. And it was a lot of fun kind of putting guys in search spot. You got Jets with 2 first-round picks or whatever after trading. Yeah, the Colts sending 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner is a choice. Is a choice. But nonetheless, hey, you live by Daniel Jones, you die by Daniel Jones. That's how I look at it. You do your thing. In terms of favorite picks, and I go to there's a lot of ones I liked out of this, but the Los Angeles Rams is a team that I'm looking at as a sneaky destination for a quarterback. They have 2 first-round picks after trading with Atlanta at pick 11. The Los Angeles Rams, via that pick right now for the Atlanta Falcons, took Arch Manning, quarterback out of Texas. And for me, I did my scouting report on Arch. I mean, raw Tuesday guy. He's figuring it out. Is he ready to be a savior or a starter in the NFL? Absolutely not. Like, not right now. But if he were to declare, I feel like there's no better place to sit, no better quarterback to sit behind, no better head coach to be coached up by. Sit behind Matthew Stafford for a year, being coached up by Sean McVay, having Davante Adams, having Puka Nakua, Kyron Williams, that running game, the defense is coming along. Arch gets to sit, watch one of the best. And I don't hear people say this about Stafford, but I'll say it. He's one of the best quarterbacks to ever step on the NFL field. Has he had the most success? No, he was in Detroit with nobody but Megatron for years. And then he finally got a team around him, and he won a Super Bowl, and he's kept the Los Angeles Rams relevant, even though he has a back injury. I think if he can give you one more year, Stafford can keep that back situated for one more season, Arch Manning get a chance to learn behind him, will do wonders for his career. And you got the bloodline of being a Manning and all that. You have a lot of different – you talk about 3 quarterbacks, Peyton, Eli, and Matthew Stafford, that you can just learn from.
Well, yeah, DP. And I think that one of the most interesting things was seeing Arch Manning back in a mock draft, right? He climbed himself back into the first round. And I believe we talked about this on Monday, right? We talked about over the past 2 games, I think it was 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, right? So maybe he's turning the corner and playing really good football. And I would say, fortunately for him, the rest of the quarterback class wasn't playing great either. So he has the opportunity to potentially climb himself back into the first round. So I thought that was a fun pairing. And you talk about just kind of a match made in heaven, almost what you said, like you putting him and Sean McVay together, like, yeah, good luck for the next 10, 15 years, right? Like they'll figure that thing out. I'm going to go with Jordan Tyson to the New York Giants. And I like this pick because I'm going to say this. I think me and you like Jackson Dart. We don't love Jackson Dart, right? We there's certain things we want to see him progress with, right, as a quarterback, even from his time at Ole Miss. But I will say, if you feel like you're catching lightning in a bottle, right, talking about Brian Daboll and Joe Sheen, then he needs another weapon, right? And Malik Nabers, and I'm an LSU guy, right? So obviously I ride for the LSU guys, and especially the good ones. Malik Nabers is one of them ones, right? But he's coming off an ACL injury. And you can't expect a player. The expectation of a player to be back at 100% themselves the next year, I just never want to live in that, right? And that doesn't matter who it is, right? Like it's always, I feel like you need a year to recover, and then you need one more. Then the next year you can be fully back yourself. And if you have Jackson Dart and you feel like he's a really good quarterback, then he needs weapons, right? And you don't want to go his second year in the NFL to where it's like, okay, we're devoid of weapons, and then now he's trying to figure it out. And I always say this, man, we can teach young quarterbacks how to play the game the wrong way. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've seen, especially with the emergence of all of these other quarterbacks. Right. And you look at Daniel Jones, and now he's just playing way better than what he's ever played with the New York Giants. You don't want a repeat situation, right? To where you have a quarterback who you drafted in the first round, right, that you really liked, and then he played god awful, and then now he's playing, even if it's not great, just solid, right? Just playing solid football somewhere else. So you don't want that. So I like the Jordan Tyson pickup because you have Wan'Dale Robinson, you have a couple of those other guys just kind of filling out, this roster with playmakers for him.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is the note about Nabers. Like adding a Jordan Tyson removes the rush of Nabers coming back. Like you don't have to rush him back for week one. Now it's different if he's healthy, he's 100%, and mentally he's where he needs to be. And you see it in practice. If you do joint practices, you don't have to like load manage him throughout the training camp season. Cool. I'm fine with Nabers returning week one. But if you draft another potential wide receiver who could be another 100-catch guy in this offense, like, yeah, you don't need Nabers to return. You could PUP him, put him on the pup list for the first 4 to 6 weeks, let him really get to 100%, and then let him and Jordan Tyson come out there and be a 1-2 punch. Because right now, I think because if Nabers isn't ready and you don't address the wide receiver position early, and I grant this is a good receiver class, so you could get a guy on day 2. I'd rather get great to go with great. Like I just saw how I look at it. I'd rather go great and great. And I trust, like, you got Cam Scadable coming back healthy next year. This is what I want. I want Jackson Dart to not get CTE early in his career. Like, I want him to throw the ball. I don't want him to have to try and run it all the time. No. So Nabers and Tyson, then you let Wan'Dale run the slot. You got Theo Johnson at tight end, like Cam Scadable, Tyrone Tracy. If I'm the Giants, I feel really good about what we put around Jackson Dart. Then, of course, like day 2, second, third round, you go and add some offensive piece on the offensive line, whether it's tackle, guard, whatever, and you make sure this offensive line is where it needs to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's the major key, right? And there's nothing wrong with having 2 high-end wide receivers. I think it was on Monday Night Football. And they were talking about Peyton Manning, right? And how he had, it was Monday Night Football because they're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. And then when you think about what Peyton Manning had, I mean, Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison, right? Like there's nothing wrong with having 2
Dallas
dudes.
Clark, Brandon Stokely.
Joe Burrow, right? Got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So there's nothing wrong with having 2 weapons. And I think that's a misnomer, right? That you got to just have one guy and then the rest of the guys are ancillary pieces. No, if you're the New York Giants and you really like what you have in Jackson Dart, surround him with the pieces. I feel like push all your chips to the middle of the table and say, you know what, let's go in.
Do everything to remove you from taking blame. If he doesn't work out, it's not your fault. You're like, hey, we invest in the O-line. We got you 2 good running backs. We got you multiple receivers. It's on you now. And you put all the chips on. You push the chips to the table, but you slide in the Jackson Dart side of the table and say, hey, this is all you. You handle your business, and we go from there.
Yep, I agree 100% with DP. Let's do this, man. We talked about our favorite picks. Let's talk about the most interesting picks, right? What picks had you, how the face, right? You kind of tilted your head to the side a little bit and tried to understand and figure it out. Let's talk about most interesting picks coming up next.
You know the saying, look good, feel good. But the problem is that most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp, but feel stiff, hot, and high maintenance. That's why there's Mizzen and Main. Mizzen and Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they perfected it ever since. Their shirts are stretchy, moist wicking, wrinkle resistant, and machine washable. No ironing, no dry cleaning. Right now, Mizzen & Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com with the promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. That's Mizzen, spelled Mizzen, and Main, MAIN.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL20 for 20% off. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen & Main stores in select states. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you can win. It takes less than 60 seconds, less than a minute to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I love picking my favorite players like Pat Mahomes or Cade Cunningham to see how my predictions play out. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineup after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks is good to be right. Most interesting picks from our mock draft, our midseason post-NFL trade deadline mock draft over at Bleacher Report, where you can go check it out at bleacherreport.com. I will drop the link in the description for those who want to check it out. Can I go to the Dallas Cowboys at pick 14? And yeah, for pick 14, cornerback Jermod McCoy. And I love Jermod as a player. I think he would, if he stayed healthy, had the season I expect him to have, he would have been CB1. It would have been him, Mansour Delane battling for that top cornerback spot. But here's the problem. We have not seen Jermod McCoy since last year because of that ACL tear. Yep. We just talked about it with Malik Nabers in the first topic, Keith. Talking about Jackson Dart. Jermod McCoy tore his ACL beginning of July, like second week of January of 2025. We have not seen him since. Even though they put out the flyers, they say, hey, yeah, we expect him back week 3, week 4. That has not happened at all. And we're heading into week 11 of college football. We have yet to see this young man.
And DP, and that was my point, right? And I know that, just in the world of sports medicine, ACLs are not the kind of death sentence, right? That they used to be years ago, 30 years ago, and then they've gotten better, right? And then Adrian Peterson has set a standard that no man should try to even attempt to reach. But there's still a percentage of risk factor of like this rehab and may not go well. And I'm wondering what is going on with Jermod McCoy.
Yeah, listen. Because there's been so many conflicting reports. There's like, oh yeah, coming into I think the Arkansas game, whatever game it was, a couple weeks ago, they said he looked like he was going to be ready to go. He looks good. He looks healthy.
That was about a month ago, DP.
About a month ago, like a couple weeks ago to a month, and they still have not put him on the field. And I don't know what's going on. It makes me wonder if he does declare. But if he does declare and he's healthy, he is going to be a guy that still has first-round potential. You're talking about being able to run the 40 test. Maybe he goes to the Senior Bowl, Keith. You know what I mean? And goes out there and balls out in one-on-ones. But that was an interesting pick at 14. I understood the decision because their cornerback situation in Dallas is not great. Trayvon Diggs is not – he's not the guy he used to be. He's been injured. Deron Bland has been an interception merchant. He just got his ankles broken on Monday Night Football. Granted, he was guarding Marv. How different does Marv look when they actually feed him the football? You know what I mean? Hopefully they, get your best player the football. I think we say this a lot on this pod, Keith. But yeah, that was an interesting pick. Pick 14, Dallas going Jermod McCoy. I love the fact that they got Logan Wilson. They traded for Quentin Williams. They did some things in the front seven. To me, this would have been a spot where I probably would have looked at an edge. Like TJ Parker went pick 18 to the Chicago Bears. I would have looked at him. Maybe you wonder, hey, could Keldrick Faulk play edge? You know how I feel about. I think he's more of a versatile piece. But I would have probably looked at edge. Mateo Uyunglele went at 21. Like instead of going with a guy we have not seen play ball, probably going on close to a year now.
Yeah, no, I'm with that, DP. And the thing is that we're seeing this, and I'm going to talk about a trade that just happened, right? And the Indianapolis Colts, right, trading 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. And for people who have been listening to us since we've taken over this podcast, right, it may have seemed that I've been really critical of defensive backs, right? They're like I'm very strict and like what I like and who I like, right? But the reason is for the example of Sauce Gardner. And I remember listening to, I think it was NFL Live, right? And they were talking about cornerbacks, and they were talking about Sauce Gardner with the trade, right? It was a post-reaction trade. And it was like, man, Sauce Gardner hasn't quite been himself since in about a year and a half. And I said, I wonder what happened in a year and a half ago. Oh, they fired their coach a year and a half ago, right? Talking about Robert Saleh, and the scheme has changed, right? And so he's asked to do different things. And tying all this together to what I'm saying is that with Jermod McCoy, with the health thing and just him overall, you want to have the opportunity to be able to make sure he can play man, right? Like he can just simply match up and play man, because that's essentially what every zone turns to. Right. And you have to call man at some point. So I agree with you, DP, with the breakdown of, okay, do you want Jermod McCoy in this very situation? Because it can turn into a lot of different things, right? Like it's a lot of unknowns, I think. And maybe if it was a second or third round pick, especially based off of the data points we have, then maybe you feel more comfortable about that. I'm going to go with this one, DP, for most interesting pick. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns selecting Dante Moore. I think at pick 6, I'm sorry.
6, yeah.
Pick 6. And the reason why I think is interesting is because if I had to put these guys in a vacuum to where there were the helmets, there were no team helmets, right? They were just plain white helmets, jerseys, plain white jerseys, plain white pants, right? And it were just prospects in a vacuum. I don't believe that there's that much difference between Dante Moore and Shedeur Sanders when it comes to a physical tool standpoint. But I think it's interesting because them drafting Dante Moore, I like Dante Moore, right? Like, so I'm not saying I like Shedeur Sanders and I like Dante Moore. I like both of them. But I guess to me, it signals that you have to be moving on from those other young guys. Like, because what does a quarterback room look like with a rookie and 2 second-year players that haven't played much football, right? Like so when you break down the fundamentals of, because most times, especially when you have a rookie quarterback, you want a veteran in there. So like what does that look like? And then because if you bring in a veteran, then is the veteran going to be third string, right? And then you're probably not going to get a good veteran that wants to be the third string quarterback, right? Like even you seen Joe Flacco, right? Like, listen, the minute I'm not starting, get me the hell up out of here, right? Like I want to go somewhere else. And then so are you going to get rid of both quarterbacks? And then if you get rid of both quarterbacks, then you essentially just wasted a 3rd and a 5th round pick from the year before. So it's so many different dynamics that go to the Cleveland Browns that it's mind-numbing, and you just have to scratch your head and say, it's interesting to watch.
100%. I think to the Shedeur and Dante Moore thing, like they are very similar. Accurate quarterbacks, they can win within structure. I think with Moore, even though he's played a lot less football than Shedeur, he's better in the pocket in terms of climbing, moving, and I think he's a better athlete than Shedeur. But I think this is a situation of Cleveland.
I probably wouldn't.
All right, we've seen enough of Dylan Gabriel. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen enough. Like, let's get Shedeur in there and figure out what you have. Like, having those 2 first-round picks, I've been saying it since they made the trade, Keith. You got 2 first-round picks. I don't care about Kenny Pickett. Joe Flacco was not going to be the starter of the whole season. At some point, you got to let both of these rookies rock and see who can get the hot hand. So then you can go into the draft season, say, you know what? Let's go BPA at both first-round picks, and let's really improve this team. But until they do that, they're probably going to be taking quarterback, or most people projecting them to take quarterback. and then the question is, okay, can Kevin Stefanski last through all this? Like, is he going to be the head coach? And it's like, then if you bring in a new coach, a new GM, new coaching staff, then whoever those two quarterbacks that they drafted this year, yeah, you sitting in a situation where man, we didn't draft you guys. Like, and now what it is that you're being held to the draft grade of the new coaching staff. Like, oh, I had a 5th round grade on you. Well, I had a 6th round grade on you. So I didn't view either one of y'all as franchise guys. I'm going to go draft my guy, right? Like, that's why, I mean, heck, even right now, look at the Saints. The Saints drafted Tyler Shuck, and dear God, like, I don't know if that's good. Like, it just looks really wild right now. Like, Spencer Rattler wasn't playing bad, but I understand the mindset. It's like, you know what? We spent a top 40 pick on you, Tyler. We're going to let you play. You're going to prove to everybody else why we need to draft a quarterback at 1 if we get one.
And then DP, and I'll say this, the same exact thing for the Saints. There is no guarantee that Kellen Moore is going to be there next year. This team has only won 1 game, and they look bad. Really bad.
Terrible. Then they just traded another weapon, Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah. So I mean, what else are you going to get out these quarterbacks, right? So
not much.
Yeah, and so back to the Cleveland Browns before we go on the Saints diatribe. Back to the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, that's why I think it's interesting, is because what are the moves that you have to make the quarterback position make sense, right? Like, and then even on top of that, if you bring in a veteran DP, are you going to want your veteran to start like, like almost like how we just did with Jackson Dart, right? And how they do with rookie quarterbacks is that let them sit for a couple weeks and then put them in. Like, they are so far off from getting this right that they have so many things to do that no matter what. And we called this a year ago, right? Like when they first loaded this quarterback room up with and what it was with the Deshaun Watson and then the Kenny Pickett and then the Joe Flacco and then Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders. Like, there is no good way out, right? Like if you're the PR person for, like, let's say if the general manager had a PR person, right, to like make this make sense. There's no good option. There's no good way out of this. You're going to have to take a loss, right? At some point
100%.
In this situation. So I thought that was interesting. Not that I don't like Dante Moore, because we've been on this podcast. Yeah. I like Dante Moore. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't want any quarterback to go to Cleveland at this point. Really. And that's me apologizing to Cleveland Browns fans. But DP, let's do this, man. We talk favorite picks. We talk most interesting picks. Let's talk most underrated picks. We're gonna talk about that coming up next.
The NFL season is back in full swing, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in this stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your favorite team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. And that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before purchasing my tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKED. ONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. The most underrated picks from our post-NFL trade deadline mock draft over at Bleacher Report at BleacherReport.com. Keith, it's a couple, man, but I want to go to pick 13. The Houston Texans selecting Francis Mauigoa, offensive lineman from Miami. There's some people that view him as a right tackle and say, hey, he can live at tackle and it's fine. But there's a lot of people that think he can kick down at that guard and be an all-pro, Pro Bowl level guard. And one thing that we've seen from the Houston Texans, they need offensive line. Doesn't really matter if it's tackle or guard. They need to figure out and find and inject some talent into this. I think we just saw C.J. Stroud lead the game against the Broncos with a concussion. He was playing well, got hit, got a concussion. Like, they have to figure out, not just for C.J. Stroud, but also for the run game. You know what I mean? Like, to get the run game going, to be balanced, you can't do nothing without an offensive line.
Yeah, you have to figure it out for your franchise, because think about, I don't know if we've ever seen a swing like this. And the swing is that when CJ Stroud was drafted as a rookie, right? He was drafted in April. About 7-8 months later in January, we were saying that Houston Texans are set to dominate the AFC, that they have a franchise quarterback and they are ready to rule, right? Like CJ Stroud was a top 5 quarterback if you had to predict future and everything else, right? So now CJ Stroud is playing average to below average quarterback football, right? And so my point is that you're trying to save your franchise from, y'all were on the cusp of being in an elite territory to where the most important position on the football field, maybe the most important position in sports, we have it figured out for the next decade. To now, because y'all haven't supplemented the pieces or whatever it has been, and there has been a regression.
They've drafted poorly.
Yeah, to where now what's going on, right? Like you are not in that position anymore. You're fighting for your life, and it's because there's been a regression from quarterback play. And has that been because you've lacked the ability to protect him and then put the ancillary pieces around him that's necessary?
No, 100%. No, people, it's crazy. I don't think people realize how important Tank Dell was to CJ Stroud. Those two. Yes, Nico Collins was the big name, the big explosive plays and all that. But if anytime you saw CJ Stroud out doing anything in the media, in public, who was right beside him? Tank Dell. Like that they basically were like brothers in that sense. They had a strong chemistry. They came in as rookies together and they hit the ground running as rookies. And then Tank Dell gets hurt, right? And now he's out the rest of this year. He won't be back fully healthy until next year. So losing that guy really put more pressure on Nico Collins, who battles injuries and he doesn't stay healthy. And then you got to offer like the decision make. I love DeMeco Ryans, but they've made some very weird decisions. Firing the OC, trading away Laramie Tunsil. Like, I'm just like, what in God's name? You trade Laramie Tunsil to sign Cam Robinson? And it's like, what are we doing right? You know what it reminds me of, Keith? It reminds me of after the rookie season Cam Newton had, where Dave, I think it was Dave Gettleman said, all right, Steve Smith, we trading you. Brandon LaFell, we won't pay you. Ted Ginn, we're not keeping you. We're just going to draft new guys. And it's like, no, even this year, Keith, you know, I was critical of the pick. Then I'm critical of it now. Jaden Higgins with the top of the second round. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, you traded out of, I think they traded out of the first round. I think he might have been their first pick of the draft. You got a guy who doesn't separate or run a full route tree. Like, and it's like, okay, you was banking on Christian Kirk. He's been hurt all year. So let's get Jalen Noel going. You traded with John Mechie. They've done so many bad things as a franchise. But to be honest with you, it's in their DNA. They've been doing it for years, for decades at this point. Since their inception, they've been doing this type of stuff where it's just making weird decisions and stuff as a franchise. So going back to the mock, getting Francis Mauigoa, like you said, Keith, this is to save your franchise. Like, I think Stroud's going to be fine, but you can't run the ball. You can't pass protect. Like, how are you going to run an effective offense without that?
Yeah, and the thing is, DP, and the reason I brought that up, right? Because you're probably the end of this year away from fans flipping and saying, is CJ Stroud even good, right? Like, in the thing is that with most fans, right? And obviously we bring context to this conversation and break things down and apply different elements, but usually fans just want wins and losses. They want production, right? And so if a player is not producing and the wins are losses, right? Then usually fans go with their move, right? And they say, let's get another one. And that's the part to where that this is going to come to a head, and it's unfortunate that y'all are in such a great position. You drafted CJ Stroud and Will Anderson in the same draft and ready to rock and roll for the next back-to-back in the next decade, and then now we're here. So I look at it from that perspective. DP, I'm gonna go with this underrated pick, and I probably could have even did this one for most interesting picks, but I'm gonna do it for underrated pick too. And that's Chris Bell, the wide receiver from Louisville, to the Philadelphia Eagles. And adding more context, if you're drafting Chris Bell, then I believe you traded A.J. Brown. That's what I think has happened. And it's because they're probably so similar in stature, right? And we'll get even more eyes on Chris Bell. I believe he'll be a Senior Bowl guy. Like, and there's no declaration. I just think that he'll probably go, right? Like that, you could go stamp yourself, things like that. And the body type, right? Just big, physical, athletic guy that tests off the charts, those type of things. I think that's what happens, but also with the trading of AJ Brown, I think it can be fun, right? And I think it'd be an underrated pick because now does Jalen Hurts have a young version of AJ Brown that he's able to grow with over the next 7 years? And you got Davante Smith and Chris Bell now as your two kind of pillars with even potentially more draft compensation because you probably got maybe 2 first rounders for AJ Brown.
Yeah, no, I mean, if they trade AJ Brown, Chris Bell steps in right into that role. And if for some reason you don't trade AJ Brown, still draft Chris Bell. Because then you got AJ Brown, Chris Bell, and Devonta Smith, and you let Devonta Smith play the slot. And it's like, that's going to be very difficult for teams to game plan against. And now Saquon Barkley is out there with no stacked fronts because it's like, well, if we stack the box, they go 11 personnel, and it's like these are the 3 wide receivers on the field. Rather than it be, I think, Jahan Dotson and Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, it's A.J. Brown, Chris Bell, and Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert still at the tight end spot. But Keith, I'll close it out real quick. Pick 28, the Denver Broncos getting their actual joker, and that is Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. Bo Nix might be the best fourth quarter quarterback in the league right now. The first 3 quarters, it's still I don't know. He's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde right now. And we need him to find some consistency, be hot or cold, one of the two. We can't keep being lukewarm, but he's been balling out in the fourth quarter. Adding a Kenyon Sadiq, and clearly they understand that they need another pass catcher because they were trying to get Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins. So they know that secondary pass catcher is an issue for them right now. It's Cortland Sutton. Troy Franklin does some solid things. Marvin Mims, those guys can get schemed up. But again, they brought in Evan Ingram and sold the house. Told everybody that he's the joker of this offense. And I think that's far from the situation. I think Kenyon Sadiq, his ability to be the joker, handle just manufacture touches, jet sweeps, jet motion, quick screens, things of that nature. He's an outstanding blocker in the run game. So they want to get. You want to create lanes for J.K. Dobbins, who I think they probably should re-sign J.K., seeing how great he's been for them, and let him be that mentor to R.J. Harvey. I don't know if R.J. Harvey ever be like an every down back in the league. I don't think he's actually built for it, but having those two is a nice 1-2 punch. You need somebody that can run block, and that's never been Evan Ingram's game. So I think Kenyon Sadiq would be the actual joker that Sean Payton was talking about. You just have to wait a year later to get it.
Yeah, and Kenyon Sadiq may outblock some of your offensive tackles at the end of the day. So we'll see. But I like that pick too because I think Bo Nix, he needs another big body. You talked about it. Marvin Mims being an undersized guy, Troy Franklin being really slender. You know what I'm saying in his approach. I think he needs another big body target across the middle of the field that he could see, and also another Oregon Duck, right?
Oregon Duck.
Yeah, somebody he's familiar with. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. On tomorrow's show, it's going to be Happy Friday, guys, which means it's Week 11 preview for the college football season. What that means, it's flying by quick, Keith. We're gonna be at the Senior Bowl. We blink too many times. We'll be at the end of January. So, guys, we're gonna preview the action, talk about those not money makers, but the guys who make them some money, statement makers on both the offense and defense side of the ball. And one of them is going against a really good defense from LSU, and that's Ty Simpson. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.